All right, there, gang. I'm sure you all know recently Biden signed what's called the Respect for Marriage Act into law, which codifies same-sex marriage into federal law codes. But what I think is so important here to understand is that the Respect for Marriage Act is really, in many respects, a very superficial or symptomatic of a far deeper issue. And that issue is really, when all said and done, nothing less than the rejection of the traditional conception of the family as the bedrock, the cornerstone of human civilization. But my guest today is here to share with us some very, very good news. We all know, as the saying goes, that tough times build what, right? Strong men. And strong men are indeed rising up all over the world and defending eternal values, standing up for truth, goodness, and beauty. And this is the only way, ultimately, we're going to fight back and ultimately win the culture wars as our culture commits civilizational suicide. Today, we're going to be diving into what patriots need to do to defend their families. My friend, Mike Frazier. Mike is the host of the podcast, Strong Men, Strong Marriages. And make sure to stick with us to the very end of this video because Mike has a special free offer just for our audience. And you can actually click on the link below to get a sneak peek. You're going to love it. Mike, welcome back. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Yeah, really good to be back.
Awesome. It's wonderful to have you here. All right, let's start. I'm just curious of your initial reaction to the signing of the Respect for Marriage Act. Would you agree that this really is more of a symptom of a far deeper issue in our culture today?
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said at the beginning, that it's the symptomatic of that, the traditional family, a man and a wife who raise a family together, with, traditional Christian values, is being criticized, trying to be erased. Everything goes. It leaves guys, I think in particular, in a rough spot as far as like what, like being toxic, like a toxic man or like toxic masculinity. I don't want to do that, but I also don't want to be too weak. It's scary. It's a problem.
Yeah.
But like you talk to your audience about all the time, like we can do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's so interesting that in the psychotherapeutic world, someone like, not even in that world, it's so interesting that world has risen to such a prominence via someone like a Jordan Peterson, for example, when it comes to a culture that seems to stigmatize strong men. There is the notion of what's called agenda setting theory, which is this notion that the full media complex, news, sitcoms, television, movies, music, social media, they together steer the political and cultural direction of the country. It's not so much leaders per se. Historically, that would have been the case. Today, it's more the media. And it's pretty clear that mainstream culture tends to belittle fatherhood and husbands like never before. I think of how so many TV shows promote the image of the father or the husband is just a lazy, buffoon, uncommitted,
100%.
comedic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see these depictions as culturally relevant, as actually belittling our conception of fathers and husbands today?
I think so. I mean, yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like, it's very hard to find an example in the media of what particularly like a strong man, but that also has values, right? That also has Christian values. So you can watch like, any kind of action movie, and this guy's like a tough guy, but sexually promiscuous. That's seen as like, oh, like that's good, right? That's what you're supposed to be.
I've heard it put, he's cool above all morality.
Right. So it's either that, or you got married and now like you're like, you have no strength, you have no courage, you've been emasculated. Like it's one or the other. And so yeah, it's tough. Like, and if you grew up in a house where maybe your dad wasn't like quite that leader, you're kind of lost a little bit for like, what does it look like to be have that good balance of both being strong, but also being a Christian and loving and following that example.
Well, gang, if that sounds like something that is resonating with you, I told you if you clicked on the link below, you get a little sneak peek of something special Mike has coming up. Together, both he and I are going to be hosting a free event on January 19th at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So mark those calendars, where we're going to be discussing how to be a strong man and have a strong marriage that will save culture. The family's at the heart of the culture wars, and Mike is going to show you how to fight it and win it on the front line. So the thing to keep in mind is seating is limited. So don't wait. Click on that link below, secure your spot for this wonderful free webinar that really is a life changer. Mike, give us a sense of what leadership in the home ideally ought to look like in a manner that promotes a culture of faith, family, and freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, it's finding that balance of both being strong, being the leader, like showing the direction you want your family to go, but also balancing that with being loving, being considerate, right. Being, someone that people actually want to be around, right? A lot of times guys will take that leadership mindset and just be like, okay, well, you guys need to do what I say. And if you don't, like with kids, you're going to be punished, or with my wife, well, you need to listen to me, that kind of approach. Right. But the problem is, people don't really like to be around that. Like they don't really like to follow that. But they also, don't like if, a lot of guys I talk to, they feel like, yeah, I've gotten too passive. I don't really express my opinions. I don't, I feel like my wife kind of runs the show, but I don't like that. I don't want to tell her what's going on because, that might frustrate her. And so guys alternate kind of between them, where it's hard to bring stuff up, but then they kind of go over the top when they get, like, I've held it in too long, now it has to all come out. And so, that's, a common pattern that we see. So it's finding that ability to both, express yourself and understand your wife and get to something that really works for both of you, while having, Christ at the center of it, right? Like a good leader in the home is someone that's following Christ. And he's the perfect example of that balance, right? He was strong, right? He knew what he was doing. He had a mission. He had a purpose. But he was also extremely compassionate, loving, to people. So, if we can take his example, that's where it's at. Like, and, compared to other like marriage programs or advice you hear out there, if you try to take that Christ out of it, you just lose focus, because now, like, where do you go, right? How do you find that balance? So, right.
It's so interesting. It reminds me of what G.K. Chesterton, the early 20th century essayist, once referred to. He referred to Christ as the in particularly in Western civilization, as the supreme integrator of opposites. So in Christ, because he provided that logos, that unity to bring together law and grace, to bring together, courage and compassion, to bring together Jew and Gentile, heaven and earth, and the like. And then he makes this brilliant analysis that, and this was in the early 20th century, that now that 20th century man was going full modern, which was, throwing full secular, throwing away Christendom, the virtues are all still there, but they've gone mad. They've scattered, right? So we're either total courage or we're total compassion, or we're either total law or total liberty. There's no longer an integrative center.
Yeah, you kind of come back to what you talked about again, the Respect for Marriage Act in this, like, it's all, like everything's fine, right? Versus, like, care about people and then love people. And also there are some standards of living that are appropriate. And
there's an order, there's a natural order to things. That if you start messing with, don't expect that your civilization's going to be around much longer. So,
Right. Right.
pride really does go before the fall. There's a
Yes,
moral
indeed.
cause and effect in life,
Yes,
right?
indeed.
What
Yep.
for in your mind? I mean, again, you've had a very successful practice for a number of years. What's the biggest challenge for men today, especially for men who where your message resonates? They want to be strong men. They want to be in a strong marriage. But what are some of the biggest roadblocks for them?
Yeah, I think it is what we're talking about. Like how do I talk about something called the mosquito cycle in what I teach. What that is so like you get this kind of, and it's a good idea, it's a Christian idea. Like I should serve my wife, right? I should do nice things for her. I should do the 5 love languages, right? Happy wife, happy
Right.
life is
Right.
kind of the mantra, right? So you're doing this, but you're kind of also expecting her to do something back, right? You're expecting that she also gives you attention, appreciation, that she's intimate with you, right? And so you're going around, you're running around, you're being a nice guy, and you're like, shouldn't I get rewarded for this at some point? And then
Right.
you don't, and you start getting upset, right? So guys will, they freak out, or they'll just kind of shut down, like, stay away from home more, that kind of thing. It just seems unfair, even from like especially for a Christian guy that kind of has that in mind. Like, okay, if I am, it's better to give than to receive, right? But at some point that should result in a reward for me of some kind.
Right.
And so guys feel trapped in the marriage too, because they're like, look, I feel like I'm doing everything that I can here. Like I'm trying to be a leader. I'm praying, like I'm doing these things, but my wife doesn't seem to really care or appreciate it, or she's not giving me what I'm expecting from the marriage. And so it can be really frustrating, can feel really trapped. You don't want to be unfaithful, but you're like, man, if I'm not getting it here, maybe I'll get it somewhere else. So it can be a really tough place to be. So I'd say that cycle is what I see is really hard for guys that feel like they're trying to do what's right, but man, I'm just not getting what I would hope for in my marriage. The respect that I want, the attention I want, the appreciation I want.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And guys need that. Don't we? I mean, there seems to be an innate need in the male for some sense of respect. I mean, even the scriptures, Paul says to wives, respect your husbands, kind of thing. Right. Husbands, die for your wives, give your life for your wives. But wives, respect your husbands, right?
Right.
It seems like there's, I mean, I could definitely see that gnawing away at a man psychologically and emotionally over time, the lack thereof.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. And so, guys, they don't know where to go, and gets feeling very overwhelming to them.
Well, walk us through a little bit of what people can expect with the webinar. This is great. You've done them before with our audience. I know you have many members of our audience that you work with, and counseling them to be better men, better leaders, better fathers, husbands, and the like. I mean, it's amazing stuff. I've done something like this myself in my own life with my wife and my kids, and I've loved it. Christian counseling is. A lot of people don't actually know that Christian counseling is like really hot right now. I mean, the combination of the psychological literature combined with the very distinctive Christian approach to the human soul, which means, the Greek word is psyche, is psyche, as it were, it is coming together to produce incredibly fruitful results like never before. So we walk us through a little bit of what we could expect if we sign up for this free webinar.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll be talking about the common mistakes that the guys make, when we're, hoping to get respect. How do we go about doing that? What are we doing that is really sabotaging that desire to get respect from our wives, to get that attention, appreciation that we want? What are those common missteps? We talked a little bit about it just now, but we'll go into more detail about, and you'll see, you'll kind of see yourself in, oh yeah, like I do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You're a human mirror. Yeah.
So you'll see some of that stuff and be like, oh shoot. But then we'll go in and we'll talk about, okay, well, so here's what's not working, right? Here's why it's not working. Here's what you need to do instead. Okay. Here's the approach that you need to take. For me, I really focus a lot on thoughts, feelings, actions, intentions, right? That's what it comes down to. So, when you're, for example, like if you're buying your wife flowers, you can think, feel, and act about that a certain way with certain intentions that will be problematic, right? I mean, like I give you flowers and now you should like give me a kiss, right? And if she doesn't, you get mad. Problem, right? So we look at, okay, how do we adjust that? Like, how do we think, feel, and act differently? We'll give specific examples on, what you can do that will help you gain that respect, that will help you reignite that attraction. What I have learned and really believe strongly is it's your feeling state and your intentions that are going to be attractive or not to your wife. So if you find yourself in your marriage, you're like, man, I'm disappointed. I'm not getting what I want. You're feeling resentful. You're feeling trapped. You're feeling angry. You're feeling down. Guess what? Like those feelings aren't very attractive to your wife. She doesn't really want to be around a guy that's feeling that way all the time. So, and so guys will say, well, my wife has to change, but now you're stuck because you can't do anything. So, we talk about, okay, well, what can you control? You can control how you think, you can control how you feel, how you act. So we'll get into that, give some specific examples of, new ways that you can think, feel, and act that are going to be much more attractive and just feel way better to you. Like when you feel solid, confident, strong, you feel better, period. By the way, that's also attractive to your wife. So I'll go into that and some very concrete examples of how you can do that.
Awesome. Gang, definitely click on the link below. January 19th, 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll be there. Sign up. Free webinar with Mike. It's going to be absolutely awesome and really life-changing. I've just heard such amazing things with what Mike has been doing. If there's a man out there listening to our conversation and is struggling to be a leader, and is in his family and being a better husband and what words of encouragement do you have for him? Yeah.
So look, I'd say, if you feel like you are, doing what you like, if you feel like you're trying to do what's right, like you're trying to help, you're trying to serve your wife, probably you just need a little bit of an adjustment in the way that you're approaching that, the way that you're thinking, what you're expecting. There's probably some things sort of hidden there in the way you're thinking, feeling, and acting that are problematic. But, we can adjust that. We can get into it. We can shift that so that you feel powerful again. Like you feel connected with God, you feel connected with yourself. Like you can get there 100%. Like it's just, you got to make some changes. Also, don't think your wife has to change for you to get there. Like being the leader means you do that first, right? You feel good first. You feel strong, confident first. And then your wife is attracted to that. And people like to follow someone who feels strong, confident, solid. You make it not as much about your wife, but about you and connecting with God and being a man that, the way I like to put it is you're a man that God, you, your wife, and your kids can be proud of, right? Oh, that's beautiful. If you can do that, like you're in a great spot. Awesome. Yeah. Before kingdoms change, men must change, right? Yeah, that's well put. This really is, gang, the foundation of winning the culture war. In order to win a culture war, you have to have a culture, and that culture starts in the home. So make sure to click on that link below. Sign up for Mike's free webinar. Again, I'll be there. It's on January 19th, 3 p.m. Eastern, where Mike will walk us through becoming strong men, strong marriages that will save our culture. Again, seat is limited, so don't wait. Click on that link below. Reserve your spot for this free webinar, and I look forward to seeing you all on the 19th. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Mike, thank you so much for your work and for the lives you're impacting. It's the impact is more than you can ever imagine. Thanks, brother. Thank you. I appreciate that.